This video is brought to you by Imprint. With the general election likely only a few months away, the Tories are running out of time to turn the ship around. They're currently still more than 20 points behind Labour in the polls, and at the time of writing, they've just suffered a terrible defeat in a number of local elections, the Blackpool South by-election, and an important mayoral election in the Tees Valley. So in this video, we're going to have a look at why some of these elections took place, exactly what happened in these three sets of elections, and ultimately what it means for the Tories going forward. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. Now, for context, there were three main sets of elections taking place this week: the Blackpool South by-election, the local elections, and several mayoral elections. So let's start with the Blackpool South by-election. This is yet another in a long line of by-elections that have been called since the 2019 general election, usually because of some misdeed of the sitting MP. This time it was Tory MP Scott Benton, whose alleged lobbying rule breaches saw him suspended from the House of Commons for a total of 35 days. Benton appealed the decision, but it was denied, meaning that his constituents were able to start a recall petition. But Benton resigned before the petition could reach the required number of signatures, which triggered a by-election anyway. Now, there are a couple of notable things to point out about the by-election. The first is that the parties went into it knowing that the Tory majority in the seat was slim, sitting at just over 3,500 votes. In the last year alone, Labour have overturned much larger majorities than this. For example, a more than 18,000 vote majority in Wellingborough, a more than 19,000 vote majority in Tamworth, and an almost 25,000 vote majority in Mid-Bedfordshire. So it's not all that surprising that Labour were able to win the by-election and secure themselves a vote majority of more than 7,500, with the Labour candidate winning 58.9% of the vote and the Tory candidate winning only 17.5%. It's also worth noting just how huge the swing in this seat is, at around 26%. Now, this isn't the largest swing that we've seen in recent years. That goes to the Wellingborough by-election last year, but it still is absolutely massive, and is in fact the third largest swing in a by-election since the Second World War. So there's no denying that the Blackpool South by-election was an exceptionally good result for Labour. The second thing to note is the fact that this wasn't just a good night for Labour, it was also a very good night for Reform UK. Now, things were already looking quite positive for the Reform Party in the run-up to the by-election. On Thursday, a new YouGov poll put the Tories at an even lower poll rating than when Liz Truss was in power, at only 18%. This is only 3 points higher than Reform UK, who were sitting on 15%. So, there were some early indicators that Reform would do well, and, well, today's results show that these signs were correct. Reform UK were actually only 0.6 points, or 117 votes, behind the Tories in the Blackpool South by-election, with them receiving 16.9% of the vote. This is above Reform's national polling average and suggests that the Tories could really have a problem with them in future elections. So all in all, it seems that Labour and Reform were the biggest winners in the Blackpool South by-election. But what about the local elections? Well, in the local elections, Labour had another set of strong results. The last time local elections were held in these seats was back in May 2021, basically near the height of Tory popularity, when national polling put the Tories on 43% and Labour on 33%. And, well, the Tories' popularity was understandable. At this point, Partygate had not yet happened, and the UK was still in the middle of its incredibly fast vaccine rollout. The country was, in essence, in the middle of a Covid-induced rally around the flag effect, which massively benefited the Tories. Boris Johnson's Conservatives picked up 235 councillors, putting them on a total of around 2,500 councillors. On the other hand, Labour, which had been led by Keir Starmer for less than a year at this point, actually lost 327 councillors. Now, the point we're making here is that the Tories started from a very high baseline, meaning that they had a lot to lose. Conversely, Labour started from a particularly low baseline. So now that things have inverted and Labour are far ahead of the Tories, it was expected that Labour would pick up a fair few seats and the Tories would lose a fair few. Across England, both Labour and the Tories were each defending roughly 1,000 council seats, and commentators suggested that a bad night for the Tories would be a loss of anything more than 500 seats. Now, at the time of writing, we don't yet have all the election results, but it appears that the Tories are on track to lose around 500, and as of 2 PM on Friday, they're down 217 and Labour up 91. On the surface, this looks good for Labour. They're making some key gains while the Tories are losing significantly. However, there is one concerning finding too, which is that Labour's position on Gaza might be hurting their vote in constituencies with large Muslim populations. In a shock result, Labour actually lost control of Oldham Council, following the election of a number of independent candidates, which analysts say was due to Keir Starmer's refusal to back a Gaza ceasefire. In fact, Labour's national campaign coordinator, Pat McFadden, even conceded that Gaza had been an issue on the doorstep, and polling guru Professor Sir John Curtis also said that support among Muslims for Labour has slumped. Now, while this might not be the most devastating news for Labour, it is a sign that this is probably something that they need to work on in the months before the general election, if they don't want any more unexpected upsets. Nevertheless, despite a shock result in Oldham, it seems to have been a good night for Labour in the local elections too. But looking at the mayoral elections, there do seem to be at least some crumbs of comfort for the Tories. There were in total 11 mayors up for election. In 6 of these mayoral elections, a Labour candidate was defending their mayoralty, and in 2, a Tory candidate was. There were also mayoral elections for the first time in the East Midlands, North East, and York and North Yorkshire. So far, at the time of writing, there's only been one declared mayoral result, Tees Valley. This was one of the 2 areas, the other being the West Midlands, in which the Tory candidate was defending their mayoralty. What's really interesting, though, is that throughout his campaign, Tees Valley Mayor Ben Houchen avoided using the Conservative Party label or branding, presumably to avoid being dragged down by their poor national polling. This seems to have worked for Houchen too, as he's been re-elected with around 82,000 votes versus Labour's 63,000. But as well as the interest in the Tees Valley, there's also been a lot of focus on the mayoral elections in Greater London and the West Midlands. In London, Labour's Sadiq Khan was going for a 3rd term, and many were looking to him to see whether the Labour national polling would hold. In the West Midlands, meanwhile, Conservative candidate Andy Street was also going for his 3rd term as mayor. At the time of writing, we're still waiting for both of these results, but we do have some provisional polling. The polling in London is strong enough to suggest that Sadiq Khan will be re-elected. However, the polling in the West Midlands has appeared too close to call. If Andy Street is successful, then the Tories will likely use this to demonstrate that they can overturn their bad polling. Otherwise, it'll just be another bad result to add to the long list of defeats for the Tories this week. Maintaining power in situations like this is crucial. In fact, you may want to think through what role power really has in society with Imprint's philosophy course. Study how Plato, Socrates, and Kant would have thought about the role power plays and how people should use it in a more moral fashion. Just like TLDR, Imprint is all about turning complex books and topics into something you can learn quickly, conveniently, and visually. It's super quick, with most lessons taking less than 2 minutes to complete, summarising knowledge from all kinds of topics, using Harvard professors and best-selling authors to teach you key concepts. It's also convenient because it's all housed in their easy-to-use mobile app, letting you replace doom scrolling while waiting for your train or coffee with actual learning. And it's visual because, well, just look at their app. If you've not used it before, you've likely never seen anything quite like it. Unlike traditional books, their animated explanations help you stay focused, understand concepts quickly, and actually retain what you learn. So join the millions of users learning with Imprint, including me. I'm taking their course called Essential Philosophy Theories and Thinkers, and you can do that too by using the link in the description. Plus, if you use that link, you'll get a free 7-day trial and get 20% off an annual plan when you sign up. Plus, they'll know that you came from us. So check it out, support the channel, and thanks for watching TLDR.